The absolute biggest problem or challenge that I faced in my home before I minimized and decluttered my space was a stuffing problem. It was specific areas of my home where I would hoard items, pile items, and these areas became exceptionally overwhelming and even dangerous. I know how overwhelming it can be to face these spaces in your home. So today I want to talk about how I overcame that myself and the different ways that you can approach this based on your style and personality. My first decluttering personality I'm calling Lisa. This is the type of person who's going to make lists. And what you're going to do is you're going to go into your space. I am going to use the closet as an example. I think this is a space that a lot of us tend to hoard or pile or clutter things up. What Lisa would do in this situation is she would go in and make a list of every single category that she wants to store in her closet. So this is going to be specific. Short sleeve shirts, long sleeve shirts, books, necklaces, earrings, boots, tennis shoes, any single category that you plan on storing in this space, you're going to write down on a physical piece of paper. Now, the way you're going to approach decluttering this space, whether you have 10 minutes or 10 hours, it doesn't matter. Your approach is the exact same. You're going to go in and you're going to choose one category at a time. And you're going to use your bed if you're working upstairs in the closet, if you're downstairs in a kitchen area or something, you're using the dining room table, but you need a flat, cleared off surface. You are going to pile up each category at a time on the bed. Sort through it, decide what you're keeping and what you're getting rid of. And this is a very organized, strategical approach to decluttering. And I love it because you can do one category a day, one category a week, depending on your time, or you could do the entire thing in a weekend. Our next type of decluttering personality is Stephanie. This one requires a little bit more work up front, but it's really good at showing you how much you have and where you need to spend the most effort decluttering, where your focus really needs to be. And she is going to declutter using the sorted stack method. You are going to put everything into stacks. All the short sleeve shirts, all the long sleeve shirts, separate piles, all those categories that we talked about, whatever you are planning on keeping in that space is going to go in a separate stack or a separate pile. This is going to give you a really nice visual on what you have a lot of. You know that's where you're going to start. Now, the only problem I see with this one is that the stacks can get mixed up together. So you've got to be pretty confident that this area where you've stacked everything up can be shut behind a closed door. But man, this is really, really good for somebody visual. Okay, Tessa is going to be our tote girl. She's going to do the 1-day dump. This is a strategy for somebody who gets overwhelmed very easily and maybe has a little bit more going on in her life where she's easily interrupted. So Tessa is going to use the tote method. I also call this the 1-day dump. This is where you just grab an armful and put it in the tote. When it's full, you start only pulling out the items that you want to keep. You're actually rummaging through this tote, but it's a small surface area. So it does not require a lot of prep beforehand, a lot of planning. Then if you get interrupted, you can set the tote aside and you know to start there. So this one's just really simple and it's good for the mom or person who's easily interrupted or easily overwhelmed because you're not facing the entire space, in this case the closet, you're just facing the tote, and that seems a lot more approachable and a lot more manageable. Now let's talk about Ruthless Ruby. This is somebody who has pretty high motivation and especially someone who is not easily distracted. This is somebody who is on a rampage and does not need to go in any kind of strategic order, who's not necessarily a very visual person. Ruby is going to get in there and she is going to attack the space like an absolute beast. This is someone who can just go in there and hold up an item and ask a couple of quick questions like, when was the last time I used this? Or if I saw this in the store today for $25, would I repurchase it? Now, maybe you hold up the item and you ask, when's the last time I used it? You forgot you had it. Let's say it's been absolutely buried in your space and you would have used it if you had remembered you had it or if you knew where it was. So if this is your first time kind of uncovering it and you're like, oh my gosh, I love this. I've been looking for this. I know I'm going to use it. Then put it somewhere in that closet space and use it in the next month. If you don't, the item gets decluttered. No matter what approach you take, asking these questions is incredibly beneficial. I like to try and make decisions in 5 seconds or less. Another thing I like to ask myself is, have I had the opportunity to use this item, but I've passed it up for something that works better, that fits me better, that I like better? If you have had the opportunity, but you continually pass it up, you can just get rid of it guilt-free. With any of these approaches, I recommend having a specific area where you know all the keeps are going back here in this particular spot. That can be really helpful. So set this in a corner of the closet that you've designated and move on to the next item. Now let's talk about Brooke. She is going to really focus on the boundaries of her space. So again, talking about the closet, what Brooke is gonna do is she's gonna take a photo and she's gonna see what kind of storage she has, what kind of shelving, what kind of compartments, what are the storage things that she already has in place that are probably working. Things are just overflowing and spilling out. So Brooke is really visual and is gonna focus on the boundaries of the space and visualize the finished room, the finished zone, before she even starts decluttering in this space. So really see, okay, this is how much room I realistically have in my space. I have to work with the boundaries because the reason this area is spilling over is because I haven't respected the boundaries so far. And you're really gonna realize that and commit to respecting the boundaries and focus on them first and foremost. So visualize what this space is gonna look like when it's all done. Then you are going to work from there and say, I can keep what fits in this boundary. I have one shelf. I can keep as many books as fit comfortably on the shelf, and I'm not gonna stack them. I'm not gonna have them be piled on top of each other. And that's the main thing, is that we're not overstuffing anymore. Keep your favorites first. Let's say you're working on a shelf with books and you're only going to keep your absolute favorites. Everything else gets pulled down until you have respected that boundary and everything fits comfortably. And I like to leave just a little bit of room for spaces in the home to actually breathe. So we have List Lisa, who is organized and strategic. Tote Tessa, who's busy, overwhelmed, and doesn't have a lot of time, also easily interrupted. Sorted Stack Stephanie is very visual and wants to see how much of each category she has. Ruthless Ruby is on a rampage, is super motivated to get her space decluttered, and is not easily distracted. Boundary Brooke is very visual but also very practical and really is dedicated to respecting the space in her home and the boundaries her home has given her. No matter what personality type you are or how you approach decluttering, remember that going through your house in layers is going to be very effective. Don't just declutter once and feel like you've gotten it all. It is very likely that the more passes you make through the space, the more items you will realize you can part with. One more major word of advice, no matter what approach you're taking, the last thing I caution you not to do is hold up an item and see its future potential. No matter how you are approaching this, nothing will hang you up more than seeing the future potential of items and say, I think I can use this, or letting guilt really stop you from letting go. 5 seconds is nice because it doesn't allow you to really get in there and mull with your emotions and really wrestle with yourself. It forces you to kind of take a more practical approach, which is how you're going to make the quickest progress. So try not to see or keep items only for their future potential, and then try and make all these decisions as quickly as possible. Let me know which girl you related to the best in a comment down below. I have another video here on the screen. I will meet you over there.